There is something interesting that happens when someone who has genuinely studied emergency preparedness walks through a grocery store. They do not head straight for the rice aisle. They do not grab the canned tuna everyone already knows about. They do not follow the checklist that every popular prepping channel has been recycling for years. Instead, they slow down in unexpected places. They pick up items that look completely ordinary. Items that have been sitting on shelves calmly at reasonable prices because most shoppers simply have no reason to consider them survival essentials. This is not about fear. It is not about dramatic scenarios or worst-case thinking. It is about something quieter and more practical. It is about recognizing that a well-built food reserve has specific gaps, gaps in flavor, gaps in nutrition, gaps in caloric density, gaps in how a family actually feels day after day eating from the same rotating stock. The items we are going to discuss today address those specific gaps. None of them appear on the standard prepper shopping list. All of them are available right now at your local grocery store or online, and together they solve problems that most emergency food plans quietly leave unaddressed. The question thoughtful preppers ask is not simply what food lasts a long time, it is a more careful question. It sounds like this: what specific nutritional, psychological, or functional gaps does my current stockpile leave open? When you ask that question, you start finding very different answers in very different aisles. Here is what serious, calm, research-driven preppers are quietly adding to their pantries right now. 1. Fish sauce. Walk past the familiar condiments and into the international foods section of any grocery store. Somewhere on those shelves, there are small bottles of fish sauce. Most people pass them without a second glance. Most prepper lists never mention them at all. That is a meaningful oversight. Fish sauce is made from fermented anchovies and salt. The fermentation process, combined with the extremely high salt concentration, creates a product that is essentially self-preserving. A sealed bottle stored somewhere cool and dark will last indefinitely. The salt and fermentation environment prevent spoilage completely. But the shelf life is not the primary reason thoughtful preppers quietly stock it. The real reason is flavor. 1 small teaspoon of fish sauce adds something to a cooked meal that nothing else quite replicates. It creates depth, a savory richness that feels complete rather than flat. The technical term for this quality is umami. Fish sauce delivers it in a way that is entirely distinct from soy sauce, bouillon cubes, or Worcestershire sauce. Here is the important detail most people miss. Fish sauce does not taste like fish once it is cooked. That sharp, pungent smell from the bottle transforms completely under heat. What remains is a deep, satisfying savoriness that makes simple ingredients taste like a proper meal. In a long disruption where the same base foods appear at every meal, flavor variety becomes a genuine quality of life resource. It affects appetite, it affects morale, it affects whether a family sits down to eat willingly or just forces food down out of necessity. Fish sauce fills a flavor gap that nothing else in a standard survival pantry addresses. 3 to 4 bottles cost well under $15. The shelf life is essentially indefinite when stored properly. It takes up almost no space. It is one of the most efficient additions a thoughtful prepper can make to an existing stockpile. 2. Nance, tahini. Tahini is sesame paste. A sealed jar stored somewhere cool and dark will last 1 to 2 years comfortably. Some sources report longer under ideal conditions. Most people associate tahini with hummus or Middle Eastern cuisine. Most preppers walk straight past it. That is worth reconsidering carefully. Here is what tahini actually contains per serving. Complete protein with all essential amino acids present. Dense, healthy fats that provide sustained energy. Calcium at levels that genuinely rival dairy products. Iron, B vitamins, all of this from 2 tablespoons out of a jar that costs approximately $6 and takes up almost no shelf space. The function that makes thoughtful preppers quietly stock it is very specific. Tahini is one of the very few shelf-stable foods that simultaneously delivers calcium, iron, and complete protein without requiring any cooking at all. Think about what that means practically. Spread on flatbread, it creates a small but genuinely complete meal. Stirred into hot water with a squeeze of lemon powder, it becomes a sauce that transforms any grain dish entirely. Mixed into oats, it turns a simple breakfast into something that covers fat, protein, and key minerals in one bowl. Now consider the gap it fills. By week 3 of a disruption, fresh dairy is gone. Calcium sources have narrowed considerably. Iron sources depend heavily on what proteins are still available. Tahini quietly covers both from a $6 jar that most survivalists never acknowledge. 4 to 6 jars costs between $24 and $36. The nutritional value per dollar is remarkable. 3 nori sheets, dried seaweed sheets, the kind used for making sushi rolls. A sealed package stored at room temperature lasts 1 to 2 years. In a cool, dark environment, potentially longer. Most people have genuinely never thought about nori in a survival context. It seems too specific, too cuisine dependent. But when you look at what nori actually contains, it becomes one of the more interesting additions a thoughtful prepper can make. Nori is one of the most concentrated natural sources of iodine available at any ordinary grocery store. 2 sheets covers a meaningful portion of the daily iodine requirement. Iodine is the mineral your thyroid depends on to regulate metabolism, energy production, and cognitive function. In a disruption where fresh seafood and dairy products have disappeared, iodine sources become surprisingly scarce. Most people rely almost entirely on iodized salt. Nori provides a completely separate iodine source from a completely different product. That kind of dietary redundancy is something thoughtful preppers build deliberately. Beyond iodine, nori contains vitamin B12 in a plant-available form. This is notable because B12 is genuinely rare in plant sources. For anyone whose animal protein supply is running low, nori quietly maintains B12 availability alongside other sources like nutritional yeast. Multiple bags at under $10 each is a very small investment for meaningful nutritional redundancy. If you are finding this useful, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment below about which items surprised you most, and subscribe so you do not miss the follow-up. There is a lot more coming. 4. Ganch, coconut aminos. Coconut aminos sits near the soy sauce in most grocery stores. It is slightly more expensive. Most shoppers assume it is simply a health food substitute with no meaningful practical advantage over regular soy sauce. Thoughtful preppers who have researched long-term flavor management understand the specific advantage it offers. Coconut aminos has a lower sodium content than soy sauce and a noticeably sweeter, lighter profile. This means it functions differently in cooking. Where soy sauce contributes a deep, dark, salty savoriness, coconut aminos contributes a lighter umami sweetness that transforms the same base ingredients in a completely different direction. That distinction matters more than it might initially seem. In an extended disruption where rice and beans and canned protein appear at nearly every meal, having 2 distinct umami condiments that create genuinely different flavor experiences from identical base ingredients is a practical tool for maintaining appetite and morale. Flavor variety in a long disruption is not a luxury. It is the mechanism that keeps people eating willingly rather than reluctantly. A family that eats well maintains energy, mood, and clear thinking more reliably than one that is grinding through meals they have come to dread. A sealed bottle of coconut aminos lasts 2 to 3 years easily. 4 to 5 bottles costs under $20. It doubles the flavor variety available from the condiment category of a stockpile at very low cost. 5. Canned pineapple. Most people think of canned pineapple as a dessert ingredient or a pizza topping. It does not appear on any standard survival list. That oversight is worth understanding. Pineapple contains bromelain. Bromelain is a naturally occurring digestive enzyme that helps the body break down protein more efficiently than the digestive system can manage alone. In a survival diet that relies heavily on dense canned proteins, dried legumes, and grain staples, digestive efficiency directly affects how much nutrition the body actually absorbs from every meal. Picture someone who has been eating the same high-protein survival meals for 6 weeks. They are technically consuming adequate protein, but their digestive system, operating under stress and dietary monotony, is running without the enzyme support that fresh, varied food normally provides throughout daily life. The result is that they absorb less from every meal than the nutritional numbers would suggest. The person who stocked canned pineapple is supporting their digestive efficiency throughout the entire duration. The person who did not is getting less value from every meal than they realize. Beyond bromelain, canned pineapple provides vitamin C, natural sugars for immediate accessible energy, and something genuinely different in taste from everything else in a survival pantry. That last point matters for morale. Sweet, bright, tropical flavors are almost entirely absent from standard emergency food stockpiles. Shelf life is 3 to 5 years. 20 to 30 cans costs between $20 and $30. 6. Pemmican. This is the item serious survival researchers consistently find when they look past modern prepping culture and into the historical record. Pemmican is rendered fat, combined with dried meat, sometimes with dried berries added. Indigenous North American cultures developed it and used it as a concentrated survival food for centuries. Arctic explorers carried it on expeditions where calorie density and shelf stability were not conveniences, but literal survival factors. Military expeditions have used it in demanding conditions throughout history. Traditional pemmican stored correctly has been documented to remain edible for years, in some historical records, decades. The combination of rendered fat and thoroughly dried meat creates an environment where spoilage organisms cannot establish themselves. There is no moisture, there is no oxygen access, there is nothing for bacteria or mold to work with. Commercially produced pemmican available today carries a shelf life of 1 to 5 years, depending on the producer and storage conditions. Here is why thoughtful preppers quietly add it. Calorie density per ounce is extraordinarily high. 1 ounce delivers approximately 150 to 200 calories of complete nutrition, complete protein from the dried meat, dense fat from the rendered tallow, both primary macronutrients simultaneously in a product that requires zero preparation, zero cooking, and zero equipment. In a situation where weight and space are genuinely constrained, pemmican delivers more calories per pound than almost anything else a person can carry. It is the food that serious historical research consistently points toward as genuinely proven in genuinely demanding conditions. 5 to 10 pounds costs between $40 and $80. 7. Ghee powder. Most people are familiar with ghee in its jar form, clarified butter with a much longer shelf life than regular butter, 1 to 3 years at room temperature, because the water and milk solids have been removed. Most people have never seen ghee powder. It sits in specialty sections alongside other powdered dairy products, invisible to anyone who is not specifically looking for it. Here is the specific advantage that makes thoughtful preppers quietly seek it out. Ghee powder dissolves into any hot liquid or dry ingredient mixture. Add it to flour before baking, and the fat is already evenly incorporated before the first drop of water goes in. Dissolve it into hot water with salt, and you have instant liquid fat for cooking without managing the gradual rancidity of an open glass jar. The shelf life advantage over liquid ghee is significant. Sealed ghee powder in a mylar bag lasts considerably longer than jarred ghee, while delivering an identical fat profile at a fraction of the weight and volume. For anyone building a mobile emergency kit, that weight reduction is meaningful. For anyone managing long-term storage, the extended shelf life provides fat coverage deeper into a prolonged disruption. Same nutritional value, better storage mathematics. 2 to 3 sealed bags costs between $20 and $35. 8. Man's egg white powder. This is different from whole powdered eggs. That distinction matters. Whole powdered eggs provide protein and fat together. They are a complete food in powdered form. Egg white powder provides pure, concentrated protein with almost no fat. It serves a different function entirely. Egg white powder sealed properly has a shelf life of 10 to 15 years. It contains all essential amino acids. It dissolves cleanly into any liquid. It incorporates invisibly into any baking recipe. 1 tablespoon stirred into any meal adds complete protein without changing the flavor, the fat content, or the caloric density of that meal in any meaningful way. Here is why thoughtful preppers stock both products separately. Whole powdered eggs cover the complete food function. Egg white powder covers a targeted protein supplementation function for specific moments when protein intake needs to increase without adding additional fat or significant calories. In a disruption where physical demands are elevated, heavy labor, sustained stress, physical recovery, targeted protein supplementation becomes a genuine performance tool rather than an abstract nutritional concept. The military has maintained egg white powder in strategic reserves for exactly this reason. It provides flexible, long-lasting, invisible protein support that can be added to any existing meal without altering it. 3 to 5 pounds costs between $20 and $35. This is a good moment to pause and say thank you for watching this far. If this information is useful to you, please hit the like button, drop a comment telling us which item you plan to add first, and subscribe to stay updated. The next video in this series covers 12 more overlooked items. 9. Canned corned beef hash. This is different from plain canned corned beef. The distinction is important for survival purposes. Corned beef hash combines canned corned beef with diced potatoes, protein, fat, and carbohydrates, all 3 macronutrients already combined in a single can. A genuinely complete meal by itself. Most people think of hash as a breakfast item, something you make on weekend mornings with eggs. Thoughtful preppers understand it differently. They see it as one of the most complete single-can survival meals available on any grocery store shelf. Open the can. The contents are already fully cooked. Eat directly at room temperature. No preparation required. No additional ingredients needed. No cooking equipment necessary. Or heat it in a pan for 3 minutes over any heat source and have a warm, genuinely satisfying meal. In a disruption where assembling individual ingredients from multiple storage locations is not always possible, where equipment is limited, where circumstances demand simplicity, corned beef hash closes the gap completely. 1 can, 1 tool or no tool, complete nutrition. Shelf life is 2 to 5 years. 20 to 30 cans costs between $40 and $60. 10 canned mackerel. Most preppers stock canned tuna, some stock canned salmon, almost nobody stocks canned mackerel. That is a meaningful oversight once you look at the numbers. Canned mackerel has the highest omega-3 fatty acid content of any commonly available canned fish, higher than salmon, significantly higher than tuna. Omega-3 fatty acids are the specific brain and cardiovascular fats that support cognitive function under sustained stress, regulate inflammation, and maintain heart health over time. In a disruption lasting weeks or months, cognitive clarity is not a luxury. Clear thinking under pressure, calm decision-making, sustained focus, all of these depend partly on nutritional support. The specific fats in mackerel are among the most researched dietary contributors to exactly these functions, and the cost advantage is substantial. Canned mackerel costs significantly less per can than canned salmon, while delivering more omega-3s per serving. The thoughtful prepper who researches this is getting superior brain nutrition at a lower price point. Everyone else is paying more for less of the specific fat that matters most. Shelf life is 3 to 5 years. 30 to 40 cans costs between $30 and $50. 11. Dried mango. Most survival stockpiles that include dried fruit reach for raisins first, sometimes dried apricots, the standard options that appear on every list. Dried mango sits nearby and gets overlooked almost entirely. Once you understand what it contains, that starts to seem like a meaningful gap. The vitamin A content in dried mango is extraordinary. It is among the highest of any shelf-stable food available at an ordinary grocery store. Vitamin A supports immune function, maintains vision in low-light conditions, and preserves skin integrity as a barrier against infection. These are not minor functions in a disruption scenario. They are foundational. In an extended emergency where fresh orange and yellow produce has long since disappeared, vitamin A sources become progressively scarcer. The person who stocked only raisins and apricots has fruit sugars, some fiber, and a small amount of iron. The person who quietly added dried mango has all of that plus a concentrated vitamin A source that almost no other shelf-stable food provides at this price point. Beyond vitamin A, dried mango contains natural sugars for immediate accessible energy, fiber for digestive health, potassium, and vitamin C, and the flavor is genuinely different from any other dried fruit option: tropical, sweet, bright. In a long disruption where variety is itself a resource, that flavor distinction has real value. 3 to 4 bags costs between $15 and $25. 12. Spam. This is the most dismissed item on this entire list, the one that gets the most immediate skeptical reactions. Set the reputation aside for a moment and look at what it actually is. Spam is fully cooked canned pork shoulder, Protein and fat in a shelf-stable form that lasts 3 to 5 years. Zero preparation required. Open the can and eat directly at room temperature. Slice it and fry it over any heat source in approximately 2 minutes. The flexibility of preparation options is genuine, but the specific function that thoughtful preppers quietly value is not primarily nutritional, it is psychological. Spam has a specific familiar flavor that triggers comfort and normalcy in a way that plain canned chicken or plain canned tuna simply does not. Fried spam on flatbread, spam with instant mashed potatoes, spam sliced cold from the can with a little hot sauce. These meals feel recognizable. They feel like something from a normal kitchen rather than a survival supply. That familiarity has genuine value in a prolonged disruption. In a long emergency, family morale is a real resource. It affects decision-making. It affects cooperation. It affects whether people maintain hope and function clearly or begin to erode under the weight of monotony and stress. Meals that feel normal, that feel like something from ordinary life, contribute to maintaining the psychological resilience that carries a family through the difficult later weeks of a disruption. Thoughtful preppers stock spam not because it has the most impressive nutritional profile on this list. They stock it because it is the item that helps people feel like things are manageable, like the situation is temporary, like normal life is still accessible. 20 to 30 cans costs between $40 and $60. 13. Nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is a deactivated yeast sold in flake or powder form. It sits in health food sections and bulk bins. Most people have never purchased it intentionally. Thoughtful preppers who research micronutrient gaps find it quickly. Here is what makes it genuinely valuable in a survival context. Nutritional yeast is one of the most concentrated plant-based sources of B vitamins available at any grocery store. B1, B2, B3, B6, and in fortified versions, B12. All in a shelf-stable powder that lasts 1 to 2 years, sealed, and can be stirred into virtually any food without significantly changing its flavor. The flavor it does add is worth noting separately. Nutritional yeast has a natural, cheesy, savory quality. In a disruption where dairy has long since disappeared, sprinkling nutritional yeast over rice, beans, pasta, or soup introduces a flavor note that nothing else in a survival pantry provides. It fills a very specific flavor gap. B vitamin deficiencies develop over weeks and months rather than days. They affect energy metabolism, nerve function, mood stability, and cognitive clarity. These are not dramatic, sudden symptoms. They are slow, quiet erosions that make everything harder. Nutritional yeast quietly prevents them. 2 to 3 containers costs under $20. The shelf life is comfortable for medium-term storage. 14 to coconut milk powder. Canned coconut milk is familiar. Most people have bought it at some point. Coconut milk powder is less familiar and considerably more practical for long-term storage. Coconut milk powder delivers the same rich fat content and culinary versatility as canned coconut milk in a fraction of the space, at a fraction of the weight, with a longer shelf life and no risk of damaged cans compromising the contents. 1 tablespoon of coconut milk powder dissolved into hot water becomes coconut milk. Add it to rice while cooking, and the result is a rich, satisfying dish that tastes completely different from plain steamed rice. Add it to oats for a creamy, calorie-dense breakfast. Use it in any recipe that normally calls for dairy for a completely different flavor profile. The fat content of coconut milk is meaningful from a caloric density perspective. These are medium-chain triglycerides, a form of fat that the body converts to energy particularly efficiently. In a high-demand disruption situation, accessible, quick-converting fat energy is useful. The flavor it adds is tropical and rich, genuinely different from anything else available in a standard survival pantry. That variety matters over time. 2 to 3 bags cost between $15 and $30, depending on the brand. We are getting close to the end of this list. If you have stayed with us this long, we genuinely appreciate it. Please take a moment right now to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Tell us which item you are going to add to your pantry first. Your engagement helps this information reach more people who need it. 15. Miso paste. Miso paste occupies a fascinating position in the world of shelf-stable foods. Most people know it from miso soup at Japanese restaurants. Almost nobody considers it in a survival context. Miso is fermented soybean paste, the fermentation process, which can take anywhere from weeks to years depending on the variety, creates a product that is extremely resistant to spoilage and rich in beneficial compounds. 1 tablespoon dissolved in hot water with a little dried seaweed creates an instant, genuinely satisfying broth. Stirred into a grain dish, it adds a deep, complex savoriness. Used as a condiment or dip, it adds a fermented richness that nothing else in a pantry provides. The nutritional profile includes protein, vitamins, and minerals, but the specific value thoughtful preppers focus on is the probiotic content. Miso contains beneficial bacteria that support gut health. In a disruption where the diet has shifted dramatically toward shelf-stable foods, digestive support becomes meaningful. Miso paste, sealed in its original packaging and stored in a cool environment, lasts 1 to 2 years. Some varieties last considerably longer. The cost is modest. 2 to 3 containers covers a meaningful period of regular use. 16. Dark chocolate. Dark chocolate with a high cacao percentage, 70% or above, belongs in a thoughtful survival stockpile for reasons that are not immediately obvious. The shelf life of quality dark chocolate stored cool and dry is 1 to 2 years. The caloric density is high. The fat and sugar content provides accessible, immediate energy, but the functions that make thoughtful preppers quietly add it are layered. Dark chocolate contains magnesium, one of the most commonly deficient minerals in a survival diet. Iron, antioxidants, theobromine, a mild stimulant that supports alertness without the intensity of caffeine. Beyond nutrition, dark chocolate serves a psychological function that is difficult to overstate. It is a genuine treat in an environment where treats have largely disappeared. Small squares shared after a difficult day contribute to morale in a way that is real and measurable in terms of family well-being. It costs nothing to add several bars to a stockpile. The space requirement is minimal. The value it delivers across nutritional, psychological, and flavor dimensions is disproportionate to its cost and size. 3 to 5 quality bars, rotated regularly, costs under $20. 17. Lemon powder. Fresh lemons disappear immediately in any disruption. Bottled lemon juice lasts longer, but takes up space and eventually runs out. Lemon powder, properly sealed, lasts 1 to 3 years and takes up almost no space at all. The value of lemon powder in a survival pantry is threefold. First, vitamin C, a meaningful amount per serving. Vitamin C deficiency, while slow to develop, is genuinely serious over months. Lemon powder provides a consistent, reliable source. Second, flavor transformation. A small amount of lemon powder added to a grain dish, a bean soup, or a canned protein creates an acidic brightness that completely changes the character of the meal. That flavor shift, from flat and heavy to bright and fresh, is the difference between a meal that feels nourishing and one that feels like a chore. Third, culinary versatility. Lemon powder works in savory dishes, sweet applications, drinks, and anywhere that a bright, acidic note serves the food. The range of application is genuinely broad. 2 to 3 containers costs under $15. 18. Mikin's Instant Dashi. Dashi is the foundational broth of Japanese cooking. It is made from dried bonito flakes and kombu seaweed. Instant dashi powder reproduces that flavor in a shelf-stable form that dissolves in hot water in seconds. Most people in Western countries have never used dashi. That is precisely why it belongs on this list. A cup of hot water with a small amount of instant dashi powder becomes a deeply savory, satisfying broth. It can serve as the base for a simple soup, a cooking liquid for grains, or a flavor foundation for any dish that benefits from a savory liquid element. The flavor profile of dashi is entirely different from chicken bouillon, beef stock powder, or any Western broth base. It adds a dimension of variety to a stockpile that nothing else provides in the same way. Shelf life is 1 to 2 years. Multiple containers costs under $20. The space requirement is negligible. Bringing it together, 12 items on the original list, 6 more that thoughtful preppers with slightly more research time tend to find eventually, all of them addressing specific identifiable gaps that standard survival food plans leave open. Let us be clear about what these items collectively accomplish. Fish sauce and coconut aminos cover umami flavor variety from two completely different flavor profiles. Tahani covers calcium, iron, and complete protein simultaneously without cooking. Nori covers iodine and plant-based B12 redundancy. Canned pineapple covers digestive enzyme support and vitamin C. Pemmican covers extreme caloric density for high demand or mobile scenarios. Ghee powder covers long shelf life fat with flexible application. Egg white powder covers targeted, invisible protein supplementation. Canned corned beef hash covers complete single can, no preparation meals. Canned mackerel covers superior omega-3 brain nutrition at a lower cost than alternatives. Dried mango covers concentrated vitamin A from a completely different source than anything else. Spam covers the psychological function of familiar, comforting flavor